Hello and welcome to the lecture series for class 12th. In today's video, we'll learn about human female reproductive system. Also located at the pelvic region, the female reproductive system in humans consists of a pair of ovaries, a pair of oviducts also known as fallopian tube, uterus, cervix, vagina, external genitalia, and also a pair of mammary glands. Mammary glands are integrated structurally and functionally to support a lot of processes that are involved in reproduction, such as ovulation, fertilization, pregnancy, and even the child care. Ovaries are almond-shaped paired structure present on each side of the lower abdomen. It is 2.4 cm long, 1.5 cm wide and produces female gamete known as ovum and several steroid hormones together called as ovarian hormones. Located one on each side of the lower abdomen, they are connected to the pelvic wall and uterus with the help of ligaments. Each ovary is covered by a thin cuboidal epithelium that encloses the inner ovarian stroma. This outermost covering of epithelium is known as germinal epithelium as it is involved in the formation of oogonia. Beneath the germinal epithelium, there is a layer of connective tissue known as tunica albuginea, and below tunica albuginea lies ovarian stroma, which is divided into two zones, a peripheral cortex that is dense layer and an innermost medulla that is less dense but is supplied with blood vessels, elastic fibers, smooth muscles and a few nerves. Female accessory ducts. The first one to discuss is oviduct, also known as fallopian tubes. Each fallopian tube is 10 to 12 centimeter long and it extends from the periphery of each ovary and connects to the uterus. If you look into the parts of fallopian tube, each fallopian tube consists of three parts. The uh, part near to ovary is funnel shaped known as infundibulum and it contains finger-like projections known as fimbriae, which helps in collection of ovum right after ovulation. Infundibulum joins the wider portion known as ampulla, which then connects to isthmus, which has narrow lumen. Isthmus finally joins uterus. Now the entire oviduct is lined with cilia and after egg is captured after ovulation, the movement of egg is through peristaltic and ciliary action. Uterus or womb. It is a single inverted pear-shaped structure that is supported by ligaments attached to the pelvic wall. It has got three layers. The outermost is perimetrium that is thin and membranous. Middle layer is made up of smooth muscles known as myometrium and the innermost layer is glandular and lines the uterine cavity. It is known as endometrium. Endometrium also undergoes cyclic changes during menstrual cycle that we'll be discussing later in this video, and myometrium, it exhibits contraction during the delivery. The uterus opens into vagina through a narrow cervix. The cavity of cervix known as cervical canal along with vagina forms birth canal through which the baby is delivered. External genitalia includes mons pubis, labia majora, labia minora, hymen and clitoris. Mammary gland is characteristic of all female mammals. These are paired structures, contain glandular tissue and some amount of fat. The glandular tissue of each mammary gland is divided into 15 to 20 mammary lobes that contains alveoli. Alveoli are cluster of cells that secrete milk. Milk is stored in the cavities of alveoli known as lumen. Alveoli opens into mammary tubules which join to form mammary duct. Several such mammary duct will join to form a wider mammary ampulla which is then connected to the lactiferous duct through which the milk is sucked out. Let us now understand the processes that is involved in reproduction in human female. The formation of ovum or the female gamete is termed as oogenesis. This initiates during embryonic development. This is one of the most interesting, remarkable and striking feature of human females, that oogenesis starts during the embryonic development of human female fetus. So a few million gamete mother cells or oogonia, these are formed in each fetal ovary before even the child has taken birth, and no more oogonia are formed after birth. Granulosa cells surround each primary oocyte, forming primary follicle, and after birth till puberty, large number of these follicles will degenerate and only 60 to 80,000 are left in each ovary to reach the stage of maturation. This shows the process of oogenesis at three different life stages in a human female: before birth, after puberty, and after fertilization. Let us have a closer look at what happens during the fetal stage in human female. In a human female fetus, germinal epithelium gives rise to oogonia. Oogonia undergoes meiotic division to form primary oocyte, which is surrounded by granulosa cells to be called as primary follicle. The meiotic cell division in primary oocyte is arrested in prophase 1 stage until the organism reaches puberty. After birth till puberty, the primary follicle matures into secondary and then to the tertiary follicle. Tertiary follicle is characterized by the presence of a fluid-filled cavity known as antrum. Primary oocyte within tertiary follicle undergoes completion of meiosis I that produces first polar body and secondary oocyte. This is under the effect of follicle stimulating hormone, which has now started being produced due to the onset of puberty. This secondary oocyte is now arrested at metaphase 2, and in this form it is being ovulated from ovary and is picked by the fallopian tube. If fertilization takes place, the entry of sperm during fertilization will cause the release of second polar body and the completion of meiosis II. This image shows the different stages of development of primary oocyte. As you can see, it begins with a primary oocyte getting surrounded by granulosa cells to form primary follicle. Early primary follicle will develop into late primary follicle as more granulosa cells and a theca surrounds primary oocyte. This theca is known as zona pellucida. Further, it grows into secondary follicle when fluid-filled vesicles start appearing. These vesicles join to form a cavity known as antrum. Secondary follicle will develop into tertiary follicle. The primary oocyte in tertiary follicle will grow and complete meiosis I. Tertiary follicle further matures into Graafian follicle. During ovulation, the Graafian follicle or the mature follicle ruptures and secondary oocyte is released along with the surrounding granulosa cells. This is known as corona radiata. The remaining granulosa cells divide rapidly to form corpus luteum. This structure is necessary because it secretes progesterone, which is required to maintain the endometrium and therefore the pregnancy. So, for implantation of fertilized ovum, progesterone is required and therefore corpus luteum is also required. But if there is no fertilization, the corpus luteum will be degenerated into corpus albicans and the next cycle of menstruation will begin. This shows production of ovum, wherein three stages are important to understand: primary oocyte, secondary oocyte, and ovum with the polar bodies. Primary oocyte is diploid, and when meiosis starts, there is chromosome pairing with crossing over, and with the end of first meiotic division, there is production of secondary oocyte and first polar body. Both of them are haploid. Afterwards, there is the completion of second meiotic division, which gives rise to one mature egg cell and another polar body. So technically, from one primary oocyte, you get just one mature ovum. Let us now understand the process of menstruation. Menstruation is reproductive cycles in female primates. The first menstruation is known as menarche, that occurs at puberty and is repeated after every 28 to 29 days. That's an average, but it's not absolute in each case. Ovum is released during middle of each cycle, that is approximately at the 14th day. Menopause is the end of menstrual cycle that occurs at around 50 years of age. Reproductive phase in human females or primate females are considered to be between menarche to menopause. This is an overview of menstrual cycle. A typical menstrual cycle lasts for 28 days. It begins with 3 to 5 days of menses that is characterized by breakdown of endometrium along with its blood vessels, so blood will ooze out from vagina. Following this, there is proliferative phase where the primary follicle grows into ovarian follicle, Graafian follicle, and on 14th day it gets ruptured so that secondary oocyte or ovum can be released. The next 14 days are considered as a luteal phase, and the basal body temperature is found to be slightly higher in luteal phase than from the follicular phase. Hormonal levels also vary a lot during these stages. Uh, the most important reference is here to luteinizing hormone, which is at its peak on the 14th day, so that Graafian follicle can rupture and ovum can be released. So following this, if there is a pregnancy, if pregnancy has taken place, there will be development of corpus luteum and maintenance of it so that the progesterone levels can be maintained, and implantation and um, maintenance of pregnancy can take place. If pregnancy hasn't taken place, there is degradation of corpus luteum into corpus albicans, and the uterus is ready for another cycle of menstruation. That's all for today. In next video, we'll talk about fertilization and implantation. Thank you.